everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Legal Committee. I think we have everybody we thought attending. The apologies I have down are Robin Johnston. Oh no, sorry, that's wrong. That's attending. I'm on the wrong thing because Robin's here. Apologies, Robin. I've got Susan Montgomery as an apology, DCC Spears and Duncan Campbell are my apologies. I think we're still waiting on Tom, but he might just be having some problems getting in. But other than that, I think we're all in attendance, have we said? So does anyone have any declarations of interest or connections? No? Great. Okay, I'll move on to decisions taken since our last meeting. We took a decision in private under section 20 of the standing orders on the 23rd of December 2024 and again on the 21st of February 2025. And I can ask you now all please to approve that we take items 6 to 11 in accordance with our standing order section 20 in private, if you're all content with that. Perfect. I'm going to move on then to the minute of the meeting and ask if anyone has any questions or if you're content to approve.
Chair, can I just come in at this point before we approve the minute from the 7th of November?
Yes.
During a recent audit of members' attendance and expenses, it was highlighted that Tom Halpin had been omitted from the Legal Committee minute from July 2024.
Oh, right.
Could we just ask members to approve that that minute is updated to include his attendance?
I'm content with that. Everyone else content with that? Yeah, perfect.
Sorry to interrupt you, please.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. That's a good point. So everyone's content with that then. Great. Smashing. And so now we're going to move on to the action log. So let me just bring that up on my screen. Sorry, I'm just doing, I don't know how many reports here. Apologies.
Caroline, can I just be rude again? Sorry.
No, carry on.
Could we ask members to approve the minute from item 2.1 from the 7th of November? Oh,
yes, apologies. Sorry, we had a few minutes to approve, didn't we? Yes, apologies. So yes, the 7th of November as well. Is everyone content to approve that one? Right, smashing. Thank you. And then we'll move on to the action log. So who wants to take us through the action log?
I think most of them certainly start off resting with myself. I'm more than happy to do so.
Yes, perfect, James. That's fantastic. Thank you.
In respect of 7LC001, this was an update to committee on the various types of employers' liability and public liability claims being made in order to identify any underlying causes or trends. I can advise members that the claims register for employer liability and public liability claims have now had a series of drop-down menus attached to them, which should allow solicitors to select the different and various types of claim that may arise. So in future iterations of the report that Claire Louise brings, you'll note that the employment tribunal cases have already been broken down into specific types of case. That will also be the case now for employer liability cases and public. Accordingly, should provide members with far more detail than they have been provided to date, and hopefully that should allow different types of cases, together with geographical areas, etc., to be identified if there are any trends arising. Accordingly, I would propose that that action be closed.
Perfect. And is that for the next one action as well, James?
Yes.
Yeah, so that covers off both of them. Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. And then the final one, that's about the reporting, the financial. Yes. Yeah.
It was clear at the very useful deep dive session that we had in January that members were aware of a number of cases that we settle and the types of case that we settle. But what was quite clear is that there was no real information on the different types of case we are handling, and giving an idea that, I think I said at the deep dive meeting, you see 100% of the cases we settle. What you don't see are all those cases that we don't settle and we take to proof and win, and whatnot. I've asked my admin colleagues to determine whether or not there are types of information that can be provided within this report to show not only the cases that we are settling, but those cases we are dealing with. And I'm going to now try to share my screen. It worked 5 minutes ago. I'm not convinced I'll do it again though. Yeah. Just wondering if people could confirm if they see that.
Yes, perfect.
Bear with me, please. What we're able to do is show by month, and obviously I would bring this back quarterly, and these are the types of case that we are opening. So up until now, members are seeing that we're maybe settling 6 employment liability cases, but what you'll see is that we're maybe opening 7 or 8 cases per month. So we're settling 6 cases in a quarter. We're opening 3-4 times that each quarter. And what I basically I'm looking for from the committee is whether or not you think this type of information is useful to go into that report. I know that the report itself is about cases that we are settling. It's almost like a financial report, but what I certainly picked up from the deep dive was that members wanted to have a better idea of the types of cases that we are working on, and so that you can also see the number of cases that we're not settling. So, as I say, this is a quick and dirty, just a grab of the number of cases or files that we are opening on a monthly basis, and then we can break them down. So I'll give you a key to what all these are. So an AFO is an account freezing order. We do those cases to attempt to put or thwart organised crime groups who are using bank accounts and whatnot to move money around. You'll see that in January alone we opened 4 of those cases. Just picking out other things. So you're aware of the employer liability cases, the employment liability cases. You're also aware of the motor claims, which is obviously the one that's sitting up there at about 44 cases. What I suppose members are not aware of are things like SOPOs and SHIPOs, which are actions we take against those who have been convicted or certainly charged with sexual offences, and it's actions that we take to thwart activities that they may have, which may involve, for example, computer use, that type of thing. I personally believe that some of the work that we do that this committee is not cited on is extremely important. So these things are there to protect children and females and whatnot from those who are clearly sexual offenders. So this table would provide you with some information around that type of case. And again, this is just another way of showing what cases we've opened as opposed to settled. Now, the one reason I'm asking, do you want this, is that these are types of cases that we've opened, whereas the report itself is about settlements. They're 2 different things. And I was keen to just get committee members' views on whether or not you A, believe this information is something that you want, and B, whether or not it's something that you believe can live in the report that's provided to members to date.
I'm going to throw that open to committee members. Do you want to, James, you want everyone just to feedback to us now? Does anyone have any?
That'd be great, yeah.
Grant.
Thanks, Chair. James, I think that would be extremely helpful to get an overview of that sort of information. And the one thing that I think it would be helpful to join it up as appropriate with the financial information that Claire Louise is producing to show for the settled ones as we do at the moment. So we can see, for example, your summary of cases that were live at the previous quarter, what's happened in the current quarter, what's been, including settlements, and the settlement bit would tie up with the finance bit. But I think it would give us a much better overview of how the huge volume of work you're dealing with, I think we're not really sighted on at the moment because we're only really focusing on the settlements. So that would be my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to do that. Sorry, I know that you're looking to come in, Colin. Maybe I could just say, I think the reason that the report has always just focused on settlements is that the SPA required to indemnify the Chief Constable in these cases, and accordingly, that's why it was almost always about the financial side of things. But as I said at the deep dive, I'm more than happy to shine a light on the other work that's done. I mean, a third of our staff are not involved in litigation at all, for example.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I found this fascinating. Pauline.
Yeah, really interesting, James. Thanks for sharing those slides. Like Grant said, I would be keen to see on a quarterly basis, you know, the number of claims open, the number settled by those categories, or whichever categories you think would be most useful to us, and also how that compares over time. Because you recall we met, I think, in October last year to try to discuss how we might move to look at the data over time. Presenting it in run charts and with some narrative around explaining significant variances and what might be predicted then for the future. So I think that work is still outstanding, but if those could both be incorporated for the next time round, because I'm sure when we spoke in October, we had the date of kind of early 2025 in mind for that work to be done in terms of the new presentation of the report. So it would be good if that can be done for next time. And I'm happy to look at various drafts with the team out with committee if that would be helpful.
That would be very helpful. I will be taking you up on that. Thanks.
No problem.
I think that's a very welcome offer, Pauline. Thank you. Have you got anything more to say on this action, particularly, James?
No.
Well, I think I'm going to propose to member. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Thanks, thanks, Caroline. I'd be happy to work with you on that, Pauline, for obvious reasons, given my future role, which we'll come to. I'm just wondering, I think this is what your question or your point nudges at, Pauline, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is, I mean, it does feel very useful, James. Will it give us a running picture of the proportion of cases which are settled by type and those which aren't?
I suppose, Chris, what I would say is that I'm more than happy for this to be an iterative process, and if what I'm bringing you is not hitting the mark with what you're looking to do, and we've got the ability to provide the information you're looking for, I'm absolutely more than happy to keep tweaking this. The reason I was making the differential between cases opening and cases settling is that very often in litigation, a case could run for 1 month or it could run for 5 years, and it's an awful lot about timing of when a settlement will take place. I'm going to be updating you on the SPF versus the SPA later on in the private session, but that's a case that's been running for certainly before I joined Police Scotland in 2020. So it's sometimes difficult to show a moving picture between cases being opened and cases settling. But what I'm more than happy to do, and indeed it's in plan, is to show a running picture of how many cases are settling in any particular quarter, have run charts with that, and I'm hoping that at that stage members can quite clearly see are there massive fluctuations? Are there massive discrepancies in the types of cases? What I will say to you is that it is not a science. So there will be anomalies like 10 employment cases settling within 1 month and then nothing for the next 3 months. Is simply about timing, when the courts sit, when judgments come out, that type of thing. But as I say, any information that we've got, any data that we've got that we can produce, I'm more than happy to bring it to the committee, and I'm more than happy to work with members, and thank you very much for your offer of helping out on this. My IT skills leave a lot to be desired, so any help I can get, I will be taking with both hands.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Well, if members are content, then what I'm sort of hearing is that we're content to close all these actions that are there, but perhaps open up a new one. And that is to continue to work on actually the presentation to the committee, to include things like the narrative, you know, a breakdown of the different types, any graphs showing trends, details of the learning, and for Chris and Pauline to assist in between the committees in helping shape that. And are we happy that we put that down as an action for reporting at the next committee, with a date on that to be actually these new reports to be shown for the next committee? Is everyone content with that as a timeline to work to? Right, okay, perfect, thank you. And thanks, James. I know this has been a power of work behind the scenes, and frankly, I'm delighted the way this is going. And I know that getting this into the reports now is going to provide a much richer view for the committee. And it is going to be an iterative process, getting, you know, that sort of BI piece right. It always is, in terms of what information is going to be helpful. But you're definitely on the right path, so well done for that. So thank you. Right, in that case, we will move straight on to item 3. And I believe that is, sorry, I'm switching screens again. It's driving me nuts, this. We are on to sorry, I've completely, who's taking us through item 3?
It'll be James.
James, sorry,
here.
I thought it was James, but then I'm sorry, apologies.
Not at all. So this is the statistical report on settlements that I've been bringing to the committee for a number of years now. Pauline's quite correct that the new run charts and whatnot have not been incorporated into this particular report. This one is in the old style, but as I say, we will be looking to bring more detail on this. And this is the report that will be changed going forward, to incorporate the new information that the committee said that they would like. That being said, the number of employer liability claims that were settled between October and December was 6, which represents 25% of the cases in the financial year. What I would say to members is that shouldn't be taken to be that something really good has happened in the last quarter, and that we have not been in a situation where settlement was being affected. This can easily just be a timing issue, and I say that because in the next category I get to, the public liability, they're up. Again, it's about settlements. It's about timing of settlements. So in this quarter, there were 6 cases settled, one large one at £150,000, and there was an average, therefore, in the last quarter of £35,000. As I said to members in the past, 1 or 2 cases can really skew the average payments that are being made. So in the financial year, 38 cases have been settled. 35 of them are within the Chief Legal Officer's delegated authority to settle, and 3 cases have been matters that have been brought to committee for authority to settle. As you'll note from the tables, although there were only 6 cases settled in the last quarter, the average of those settlements are actually higher than the financial year. And I hope that this provides the committee with information that, you know, although there are not an extraordinary number of cases being settled, one or two cases can, and indeed do, skew the figures at which settlements are being effected. However, there is nothing within the employment liability side of things that's causing legal services to be thinking that there is something untoward, or there are particular cases arising in a particular area, for example. There is nothing with this. This is, as you can see from the appendix, in accordance with the way that the cases have been settled over the last 5 to 6 years. Public liability claims, there were 16 settled. 15 of those were around about the £2,000 mark. These tend to be cases where police have executed a warrant at the wrong house, and will obviously have to pay for damage or lost property, property that's been seized and then ultimately lost, that type of thing. There was one case which was settled at £75,000. I'm aware that this matter is being streamed in the public committee. More than happy to speak in private about that particular case, because obviously it represents financial data for the individual. What I can say is that the committee are very much cited on this case, and it formed part of a long-running case that the committee had previously provided authority to settle a significantly higher figure than that. As I say, if members wish me to elaborate on that, I'm more than happy to do so in a private session, but I think it would be untoward for me to expand on it in a public forum. With regards to public liability cases, it brings us to 55 for the financial year, and the total settlements at the moment are £166,850. Motor claims, there were 60 cases settled at around about £507,000. You'll see that there is one very large case involved there. And again, the committee are cited on that particular case, and I'm more than happy to go into detail and perhaps remind members what that particular case is concerning. The committee are very much cited on it, but once again, it shows that one case can very much skew the figures that we're settling at. That all being said, there is nothing within motor claims that is showing anything that's causing us undue anxiety. I've explained to the committee in the past that motor have risen in value over the last couple of years, but that's because of real world factors such as the price of parts increasing, the price of labour increasing, and the production lines in getting parts for motor vehicles being longer. When it takes longer for parts to be delivered to fixed cars, we're paying more in the form of courtesy cars, that type of thing, and these are all regarded as costs in these actions. So as I say, although there does look in the last couple of years to have been quite a jump in the value of motor claim settlements, these are down to real world reasons. There are no more of these cases. It's just that what they're increased, and accordingly we'd be paying out more. With regards to the historical data, it's as the committee each year. One of the things I would maybe point out is that with regards to public liability, we're actually on course to be lower than the last 5 or 6 years. But obviously a settlement could be effected in the next few weeks, and it skews that figure. But as I say, there is nothing untoward, and I fully hear the committee that charts and our graphical tools could be used to perhaps provide a better understanding of trends and the ability to analyse. But with that, Chair, I think the report speaks for itself. There is nothing unduly alarming within the paper, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Many thanks, James. That was very clear. And I think it'd probably be useful to take those 2 items into the private and then maybe give us just for the committee. But I'm going to throw open now to members for questions. Anyone has any? Pauline.
Yeah, thanks, James, and thanks for that update as well to the paper you've just talked us through. I was going to ask about the motor vehicle claims, but you've explained that, and we can, as you say, Chair, discuss the individual one later on. It would be helpful to understand in terms of the employer's liability claims, whether these are around employment disputes or accidents at work or a mixture. Are we able to get that kind of a split?
Yeah, that's exactly what's now going to be put into the claims register.
Okay.
You'll be aware, Pauline, that the employment tribunal side of things, we broke down to race discrimination, disability discrimination, sex discrimination, victimisation, harassment, all these different types of things. The employer liability things is we'll break down into slips, falls, injury during training, that type of thing, so that we can determine exactly what type of employer liability cases are arising. I am aware that in the past these have all been lumped together. I would say though that within the last 12 months we have managed to break down into employment tribunal cases as being always distinct from employer liability, and going forward the employer liability cases will be broken down further, so that the types of employer liability case are available for analysis as well.
Thank you.
Perfect. Because this will be some of the work that you guys will do together, won't it, in between the committees? So that will be very welcome, I think. Grant, you had your hand up. You've taken it down. Are you?
Yes, I've taken it down because it was exactly the same question as Pauline had.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, listen, thanks very much for that, James. That was great. We can now move on to our next item, which is, I think, is it committee effectiveness? Sorry, I keep.
Chair, is Grant wanting to come in here? Or
No, my apologies. I was trying to take my hand down and it kept coming back up. My apologies.
Yes, I think that's the end of that item then. So are we on to now? Sorry, I keep losing my.
We're on to committee effectiveness, and
That's what I thought we were. Yeah,
we have Vanessa on the call, Chair.
Oh, brilliant! Welcome, Vanessa.
Excuse me. Apologies, thank you, Chair.
No problem. You all right?
So our committee effectiveness process, it plays an important role and offers insight to support the authority's commitment to continuous improvement in the governance. So the committee will be aware that all of our committees undertake this annual self-assessment process. They consider how they're performing against our terms of reference, and in turn that informs members' development, committee development days, our work plan, and it also informs the certificate of assurance process that each committee is required to submit to Audit, Risk and Assurance Committee. Excuse me. So you will note from the paper that we have enhanced this year's process, and you'll note at paragraph 1.2, we invited all the stakeholders that were listed there to offer their assessment and their views. Overall, Chair, the results from members of the legal committee are very positive. There were very few areas for improvement that were identified. In terms of the stakeholders, we did receive 3 responses to our overall survey, one of which was specific to the Complaints and Conduct Committee. Feedback was positive. They agreed that the committee priorities were clear and that there was a link to the work plans and reports were clear, and the committee is effective in overseeing and supporting policing. So, Chair, the purpose of today is just to ask the committee if you could discuss the report and the results, consider whether there are any areas for improvement that we can take forward through the various forms that we can through development days or work plans or feedback to authors of papers, for example, and just confirm whether or not the committee is satisfied that they have discharged their terms of reference for the 24-25 period to date. Happy to take any questions.
Smashing, that's great, Vanessa. Does anyone have any questions for Vanessa? I thought it was a very positive report overall. There's obviously a few things in there that perhaps, does anyone, obviously the feedback has been from people who maybe, there was a couple of concerns around things, so maybe, does anyone have any feedback overall for Vanessa? No, I thought it was a very positive report. Oh yes, Grant.
Yep. Thank you, Kellen. I also thought it was a very positive report. It was very easy to read and very easy to follow. I think what we were discussing earlier on this morning is an indication of how the committee is very keen to have a better understanding of the work that the legal team that Douglas is in charge of actually deal with all the sheer volume of things, so we have a better understanding of the nature of the activity and the flow through into the settlements. Because in the past, to me, we've focused more on settlements than anything else. And I think the more information we can glean about this sort of activity, the more it will help understand how this in turn flows into how Police Scotland deals with lessons learned in terms of trying to achieve continuous improvement. So I think there's quite a bit in that sort of area that can be developed in time going forward. But I think it was very good to read this report. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Totally agree with that. Anyone else want to comment?
Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of things I would add. I think Grant's absolutely right. There is definitely some learning around impact and pace of change and how things are learning our lessons is coming through. That's a theme that has appeared actually in all the committee effectiveness feedbacks that we've got. So we are going to take that away through member seminars or development, have a think about how we can work with report authors to better articulate that. A couple of other themes that have come through is members are telling us that they would like greater focus on, the impact assessment of reports. So we have a tendency to just summarise report authors that there is little or no impact in the various elements of it, be it equalities, financial, resource, etc. But actually there often are, and we need to work with report authors to make sure they're fully equipped to understand how to effectively complete that. That will in turn support members to better understand the impacts of the proposals that are in front of them. So that's an area for development that we're going to take forward in the year ahead. And the lessons learned part is definitely another element of that they are keen to focus on. One of the particular bits of feedback for legal committee was about a greater focus on organisational culture. We think what that means is actually about learning, is what are you seeing from your legal cases that are preventing that from happening in the future. So that's something that we can do to work with report authors, with forensic services, with Police Scotland and the ASP's corporate team to make sure that that is better captured and articulated for you in the future.
Spot on, Vanessa. I think that's welcome news for us all. Does anyone have any final questions for Vanessa on this report? Well, I think overall they're very positive. I think the actions being taken forward are excellent. And I'm just going to ask the committee if you're all content that it'll either be myself or Chris, I'm not terribly sure which of us will sign the committee assurance certificate, which just confirms that we've fulfilled our obligations. Is everyone content with that? Smashing. Right, Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and enjoy. Let you go now to get on with your day. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to move now to the work plan. You can see there the items coming up for the committee over the next year. So I'm just going to throw that open to if anyone's got any questions or comments on the work plan before we are content to approve that going forward. Pauline.
Yeah, just a couple of areas that I felt were incomplete in the work plan, because I know that they are scheduled now each time we meet, which was the finance update and the legal data. Both of those, I know we have regular updates on our schedule, so I wonder if we could just update the work plan to reflect that, and then it helps everybody in terms of what's coming up and preparing for a committee.
A very good point. Yes, I think we're happy to do that. Very good point. Thank you. Grant.
Thank you, Caroline. Two things for me. One is, it does seem to be quite a gap between November and March, and that's November 25 and March 26. And I'm conscious of the number of meetings we've had to have on an ad hoc basis in the last few months. And I wonder whether, in fact, there needs to be something in between these. But that may just have to be dealt with on an ad hoc basis. The second point actually follows on from what Pauline's been saying about financial information. I think it would be extremely helpful to have some information about how not just the settlements that are taking place and the payment, how they all compare with provisions that have been, the budget and provisions that have been set up in the course of the financial year, how they're being utilised. So we have a better overall understanding of how it's all shaping up.
Finance, yeah, I think that's a good point. Well, I think if that's all right, I think we'd be content to put that in into that, maybe under the finance piece that Pauline talked about, maybe there. That would be okay. And I think the point on the length of time in between is probably a good one. But I suppose that's just about how many committees you want to actually schedule and whether you're happy with ad hocs happening in between times. So
sorry, the reason I particularly mentioned the importance of scheduling some of them is that I'm conscious that certainly from April for some time there are fewer board members until new members are appointed. So therefore people's diaries are going to get quite complicated, and it might be helpful to set aside time. It's often perhaps easier, Colette, I'm sure will know, to actually have something in the diary and then have to cancel it if not required, rather than to try and find people's availability at short notice.
Short notice. Yeah. Tom, do you want to come in on that point?
Slightly different point. So I agree that with what Grant says. My point was looking at the committee effectiveness again, and the work schedule. There's two areas that we might want to think off table about. Is there work we could commission or support there around prevention, and the other is the relationship to organisational culture. Given that if we just look at this from a financial perspective, and it's a never changing position, then that's costly.
That's a really good point, actually. And I'm not terribly sure. This was, I think, the reason for having the sort of tripartite meeting, which was about people working with us and Police Scotland colleagues, because it was that triangulation, wasn't it? So maybe that's, I don't know whether we want to put a sort of annual kind of reflect on those two items, maybe with our people colleagues. I don't know what, Tom, what you think of that, or?
Yeah, well, I think there's a bit of work off the table reflecting on the effectiveness review of the committee. These are two areas where it's less strongly agreed with than other areas, and maybe off table we could think about that and come back with some thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because it was the concerns about those two that brought about that joint sort of workshop in January. So perhaps that's something, again, we could maybe reflect on off table. You're quite right. Happy to take that away as an action. Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Tom. That thought was running through my mind as well, because I think what Vanessa said in terms of sharpening up, in terms of impact, will give us a kind of rolling picture, a clearer rolling picture, but what it won't necessarily give us is a kind of summative picture of trends and learning over time. And I think that's what you're talking about trying to capture there, Tom. And I think that would definitely be helpful to schedule that. So you picked up something that was in my mind. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll maybe take that off table just to sort of decide how best to put that onto the work plan at some point. Would that be okay for everybody? Colette, are you content with that?
No problem,
Okay.
Chair.
Okay, smashing. Well, if we're all content then with those couple of points on the work plan, then are we happy